Welcome, everyone. For those of you live, for those of you catching the recording, I wanted to talk about Pisces, especially in light of the current transit of Saturn through Pisces. And this was meant to, be for everyone. I think that possibly this talk attracted a lot of Pisceans themselves, which is great too. These images are courtesy of Dage, the story doula, who made these for me. So these images specifically. We are currently in Saturn and Pisces time period. So this began March 7th, 2023, and goes until May 25th, 2025. We'll have a little bit of a break as Saturn moves into Aries, and then it will retrograde back. So this is the landscape that we're currently in. And I have been having, as most of you here in the chat who are here live told me that you have placements in Pisces, you've been getting a Saturn transit. And Saturn in Pisces is a very interesting transit. I've learned a lot, and that's why I wanted to gather you here. And I'll also admit that this topic worked me to the bone. I had dreams about it. I got depressed. I found a spiritual opening. I'm not depressed anymore, thankfully, but there is something about just sitting with Saturn that worked me. And I hope that I worked through it to a degree that I'm not passing on the depression vibes through this talk. You can let me know how you receive it. So the scope of our discussion, I really feel that with astrology, especially once you already have foundations, like you understand the planets and signs and you know how to read charts, or you're getting there, that sometimes you can just zone into one detail and have a really big experience. So instead of focusing at length on what Pisces is in its entirety or what Saturn is in its entirety as overviews, I wanted to really zone in on a particular archetypal pattern and look at it in more depth. But just so we're on the same page, to back up a little bit and do a slight overview of Pisces and of Saturn. So Pisces is such a mystical sign, right? It's the 12th sign of the zodiac. It is completing something. There is some big culmination that's happening through Pisces. There's been a lot of experiences in this life and prior lives that have been collected, and there is a journey to return back to source, whatever that means. As in, we are these particular individuals having a particular incarnation, and we have a lot of attachments to our earthly experience. And Pisces is walking this kind of double life of being here, but also being kind of beyond this experience, right? And because of that presence with the beyond, Pisces brings a great deal of inspiration, compassion, gifts, really, spiritual gifts, emotional gifts, clairvoyance, visionary gifts to the collective, to the people that they interact with, right? You don't have to be a public figure. You can just, when you're in touch with this kind of Piscean energy, this deep connection to the other world, the beyond, to God, to the magic, and you are just living your life, you're creating a ripple. There's something deeply magical about this sign. And on the other side of this, there's also an alienation that Pisces feels with reality, because if you just existed in a plane of reality where there wasn't temperature, where there wasn't pain, where you could just think of something and it would manifest instantly, where there wasn't duality, where there wasn't separation, things on Earth can seem very cumbersome or tragic or difficult. that, there's all sorts of experiences here. And the more that I thought about Pisces through the lens of Saturn, so I don't want to jump ahead too much. I think there's something about Pisces where um, Pisces isn't just lost in the fun magic. Like Pisces also has some difficult experiences. Um, and I think it has something to do with this deeper pulse in Pisces to really love, to really reconcile with things in a deeper, ultimate way, and to forgive and to experience redemption. So, redemption being, in a religious sense, it's that idea of being saved, but redemption in a more like psychological sense or personal sense is becoming okay with or finding the sublime or finding the rainbow at the end of the storm, if you will, for whatever it is personally for you that has needed redemption in your life. I have a sense that those of you watching already know what Pisces is, so I won't go on too much more, but if you do have questions, let me know, pop them in the chat, or we'll talk at the end too. And so then we have Saturn right now transiting through this sign. And so Saturn in of itself is this planet that brings a reality principle. It's cold and dry. It relates to hard linear time and cause and effect. Saturn is a force that materializes things. Um, it's also a conditioning factor, as in the events that happen over time that create history, that create culture, and that, we're born into these cultural contexts that have been formed and crystallized by our ancestors and by the culture um, that existed before we came here. And when you want to change something with Saturn, right, if you're trying to change reality or adjust something, things with Saturn take a lot of time. They can, because we're going, there's a lot of history that's involved. Saturn is also about understanding limitations and constraints. It's about maturity. And it has a lot to do with grief, as well as acceptance, right? It's like kind of landing on the earth. So already we have a very interesting combination when Saturn moves through Pisces, because Pisces wants things to be limitless, for the magic to be on tap, for anything to be possible. And Saturn is like a narrowing factor of like, well, what is possible given what's already happened or what the limitations are in reality? What's possible? It's interesting also that Saturn moves through Pisces as it moves through all the signs, but we're here in this Saturn and Pisces moment of where are we learning actually some deeper, real skills that are Piscean in nature, right? Not just that we are being disillusioned of Pisces fantasies and coming into reality, but what part of reality is inherently dreamy? So, for example, one thing that's happened for me with Saturn and Pisces are two main things. One, I had a really big sobriety journey around my addiction to fantasy, which was not something that um, I would say it came to my life more in the form of intervention and not as like, oh, Saturn's in Pisces, time to not be in fantasy. It became unworkable, right? Like Saturn and Pisces kind of audited or showed me like, you can't do this. And at the same time, my ability to tap into fantasy as a Pisces rising, Mercury, Mars, and Venus was something that I took pride in, that I spent years like walking around, as a writer and looking at things that were happening around me from the perspective of a poet or a visionary. So instead of just looking at things as they were, I would embellish them with my imagination, um, as a way of creating like a more poetic, or I put here like rose tinted glasses, way of seeing things that did wonders for my artistry and horrors, you could say, to be dramatic, for, my capacity to be discerning, um, or, like really connectable, I would say, in deeper places in like relationship, for example, because if you're going to relate to a person as a fantasy and not as a real person, distortions and things happen real quick. So fantasy addiction was something that I started to really let go of and have to face, like, what is it that I'm running away from or that's so uncomfortable about reality without the extra flourishes and embellishments? What is it that I don't want to feel? And that became so rich, and taught me so much about Pisces and inspired a lot of what I'm sharing today. The other thing that happened was that once I let go of a lot of the fantasy addiction, that I started to keep a dream journal more, like committedly. And I started to experience my waking life and my dreams really having like a woven conversation with each other, not just kind of even some prophetic dreams or dreams that have that mystical, like foreshadowing of the day or something like that, but also the things that I'm processing during the day and I'm trying to understand would visit me in my dreams. And I would get messages. And so suddenly life was becoming more enchanted again after I let things get drier. It was almost like letting go of sugar and being able to taste the natural sweetness of fruit or something like that. So I kind of found that there's something about this reality that it can't be completely devoid of magic. You can make it that way, but the human spirit suffers. There's something very human about our desire to connect with vision and dream. And we do it when we're young in the form of playing. And maybe, we continue to play throughout our lives, but we also do it in the form of watching films, even going to sleep, anything we do that kind of puts us in an altered state, or connects us with a more liquid, mutable kind of reality. And then Pisces is really challenged, like the big task, maybe the taskmaster, Saturn kind of thing with Pisces is, how do you blend these worlds, right? Because if you love the magic so much that you don't want to be in reality, you're going to be prone to things like escapism, which is a vice of Pisces, and different forms of addiction, which will get you to the magic, but it's not grounded in reality. And I don't suppose people watching this have this problem, you might be so earthbound, so disconnected from vision and inspiration that things are starting to feel unbearably dry. So Saturn and Pisces agenda. Agenda, is just a term that is used with planets and signs, carrying out the planetary agenda. It's not a conspiracy or anything like that. But what is Saturn trying to accomplish in Pisces, essentially? A few ideas. One could be realizing immaterial dreams into material form, and the journey of learning how to do that, right? It's a big initiation to dream of something and then to manifest it concretely. This was where my orientation to reality has long been on that side of things. I was really influenced by different kind of manifestation teachings in my early 20s. The work of Bentinho Mazzaro, for example, where he would talk about like this human folly that people are out here emotionally responding to things that happen in concrete reality, and then their emotions are forming other realities. And he was suggesting, like, if you want to really be free as a creator here, have emotions on purpose, like anchor into a feeling state a vibrational state and allow reality to crystallize around that vibrational state instead of you just reacting and responding to what's already materially real. That can be a very controversial idea in the same way that, you will see children being chided or whatever for being too, spending too much time reading fantasy books or being in their daydreaming world too much. We also have ways of shaming adults for bypassing or, why aren't you, so again, challenge of Pisces. How do you stay in touch? How do you balance your relationship with the beyond, with fantasy, with vision, with dream, with genuine inspiration, and what's happening? But I'll keep going. Another thing with Saturn and Pisces would have been sobering up from more immature or untrue fantasies or the layers of our dreams that are ready to grow up. So this could be parts of our dreams that come from wounding or from our inner child in a way that doesn't serve in adulthood. We'll get more into that today, but you can think about different times in your life where you've had a dream and that some years later you're like, thank God that dream didn't come true because I don't want that anymore and I know better now. And sometimes we actually do get to realize these dreams that aren't really for us, and we get to be liberated from the dream by actually having it and realizing it's not everything you thought it would be. And sometimes there's things that we've been dreaming of, and it's almost like we never get it. We can't figure it out. And there's something about the root that the dream is coming from that's not fully aligned. And that is a difficult part of Pisces, to kind of rip yourself away. I feel like you're being ripped away from an attachment to a dream that, for whatever reason, isn't the thing in this life. And that opens up a lot of different types of despair, the sense of why God, why me, why can't I have it? Or just that kind of general confusion of, am I supposed to hold a candle, a prayer? Am I supposed to believe no matter what? Or do I need to let go and surrender this? The more I sat with Pisces this week in preparation for this, I thought about there's things that are just not in our control with Pisces. If it was in our control, it wouldn't feel so massive and oceanic. It wouldn't be the thing that we were praying for, wishing for, hoping for. If I wanted to go walk outside my door that I see on the other side of the computer, I can do it. It's there. I don't have to wish and dream and hope, right? So there's something about the Piscean experience, or what it puts us in contact with, that is just so beyond, or kind of, beyond our control. And as humans, we grapple with that. We get confused. Or when we get in alignment with that kind of deeper wave of the universe that wants to move through our life, it's so powerful also. But it's not the clearest A to B kind of journey. So the at times painful, at times joyful discovery of deeper spiritual truths that play in our lives happen through Pisces, but also Saturn and Pisces. So this was an archetypal pattern in Pisces that I mentioned that we were going to get to, that I really sat with in particular. And there's parts of it that are still really mysterious to me. So I'm going to illuminate it, but at the same time, invite you to reflect deeper on it. If you know the tarot, awesome. This will probably land for you in a way that's intricate based on your connection with the practice. But if you don't know tarot, that's fine too. We have these 3 cards, the 8, 9, and 10 of Cups, which relate to Pisces. The 8 of Cups being the first decan of Pisces, the 9 of Cups being the second decan, and the 10 of Cups being the third decan. So that's 0 to 9, 10 to 19, and 20 to 29. These are symbolic correlations. I've really loved incorporating the decans with my awareness of astrology over the last few years. I have been influenced by 36 Faces. And also my understanding of the tarot has been influenced by Christopher Marmolejo, Benabel Wen. So just throwing that out there if you're looking for resources to learn these things. So disappointment as part of this story. So in the Eight of Cups, this card actually is corresponded to Saturn and Pisces. There is a condition of retreat or walking away. Something isn't what we thought it was going to be. And so there's a sadness, there's a melancholy to this card. Disappointment, right? If we only looked at material conditions and events as neutral and objective without associating value, judgment, or meaning onto them, there wouldn't be anything to be displeased or happy about. Things would just be neutral. Disappointment is a clash between what an idealistic, visionary part of us imagined or assumed would or could be versus how reality fell flat in comparison. Disappointment has been like a really huge point of inquiry for me the last few years, especially because there's a erotics of disappointment in that, like, you're kind of, going up the roller coaster, like you're getting ready for a ride or something like that, and you're getting anticipation and you're excited and you're thinking about what could happen or what could be. And then it falls flat. It isn't what you thought it was going to be. The person that you were excited about, that you thought was maybe potential partner, it's not going to work out like that, or whatever the disappointment is about. And the kind of question of how we hold disappointment, like if we let ourselves have it, if we're compassionate with ourselves in it, if we shut off sensation or numb ourselves to disappointment, or if we're so afraid of experiencing disappointment that we don't even take the risk in the first place, all just to avoid feeling disappointment. So I started to see before Saturn entered Pisces that just letting myself feel disappointment and letting myself have it was enlivening. That it wasn't something I needed to protect myself from feeling. But yeah, just seeing the ways that disappointment and our fear of it kind of manages how we interact with situations. Right. So Pisces, the journey begins here. We'll come back to this. And technically, the Pisces journey, it begins here from the perspective of the tarot. But you can also look at this from a developmental perspective of, say, being a part of God, being a part of Source, being like a soul that exits like the womb of the universe and enters Earth, is here in this incarnation. And how in childhood, we have we're kind of wired at a soul level to remember how we are part of God, that there's something profoundly whole about us. You can argue also that we have wounding and that's why we come to Earth, however you want to look at it, but there is some kind of memory of wholeness. And then we have these experiences in our early life where we are met and loved and cared for, and then also these moments where we're not, where reality falters, where we're crying and someone doesn't come to attend to us when we're a baby, or there's something about our experience that no one around us can see, and we're left alone or neglected inside of something. And so there's these, disappointments that happen in our early life. And then a part of the young psyche kind of splits off. It's too difficult actually to hold the gravity of that disappointment. And then we develop some kind of coping mechanism, personality structure. But then later in life, we see these glimmers in special experiences or people that we're attracted to as like they have something that reminds us of that part of us that we lost, which creates, projection. And what are we looking for with that projection is just a return to Eden. This is largely influenced by the Eden Project by James Hollis. This idea that we lose parts of our essence in early life due to the disappointments of Earth life and that are inevitable, and that we look for these things inside of our hopes and dreams that we project onto other situations that seem idyllic, and that we're really just trying to connect back to something original. Right? But disappointment, the difference between the ideal, what could be, and like falling to where things are that aren't ideal. And then in the Nine of Cups, we get wish fulfillment. So where we previously felt emptied out or were in a state of not having in terms of our relationship with a dream, there comes a moment in the story where by the good of life, as well as by the harvest of our own prayers and efforts, and often a mix of the both, we receive something we deeply wanted in a place that we used to not have it, which is a profound celebratory moment of Piscean redemption. And you can already see how there's something about the emptiness or being emptied out that makes space. Like you empty a vase of water and now there's space to pour more water in. Like, how do we receive if we don't have space? Or, if you're used to having something all the time, it's not necessarily that you become entitled or spoiled or whatnot, that it might go that way, but it just might not be something that, you're used to having food. And so when you eat another plate of food, you're not like, oh, thank God, I've been starving. But if food has been a resource that hasn't been present reliably, and then you get that plate of food, it has more of that like miraculous quality to it. So the idea of like how wish fulfillment is already even connected to a previous emptiness. Also worth noting here, I want to mention, like, think about the things that you really are still wishing for, where you haven't maybe gotten to a later part of the story or not reliably. Sometimes it's hard to dream or to hold a dream. Like sometimes we do need to let it go for a time to just stop gripping. But other times we don't even let ourselves dream or have the dream because it's like we can't hold it internally. I've definitely been here where there's things that I've wanted in life that I have to like compartmentalize it for a year, a couple years, or like I can't even think about that. Like I'm I'm gonna just become so emotional or like unable to hold myself in this desire. Versus when you build up the internal resource and you can be in a state of emptiness and know that you really want something and have faith that your life is headed in that direction, without you having to micromanage it, right? A big challenge in Pisces is like, what's our side? What's our work? What are we responsible for versus what is the role of grace when it comes to, what's out of our control? And then the last card of Pisces is the Ten of Cups, which is a more miraculous happiness moment. Life offering these kind of flash moments of profound happiness, like the emotional state pictured in the Ten of Cups. We have a happy family underneath a rainbow, children playing. These are moments where our material reality aligns so sweetly with our deeper spiritual or emotional yearnings, like a symphony from God designed just for us, We're overflowing with happiness, gratitude, and fulfillment in our hearts. The rainbow is also thought of as a promise from God. This is like a biblical kind of interpretation. This was something that I remembered learning as a kid, and I just did some research and I was like, is this true? Because I remember learning as a kid that there was a myth that rainbows are promises from God, that it had something to do with Noah's Ark and the floods. So that was confirmed. And I saw on the internet that there's other interpretations as well about what rainbows mean. But considering also that rainbows literally appear after storms and it's just this beautiful arc, rainbows have that kind of like awe-inspiring quality to them and they show up after a storm. I thought that was really symbolic. And so notice like how this journey of these three different states or cards made you feel, what images came up for you in your life. But I think this can offer a window into what Pisces is really dealing with, because it's not just that Pisces wants something, right? Like all the signs all want things in different ways. Leo wants to have a good time, wants to play. Taurus wants like pleasure and nice things, right? We're talking real simple. Pisces wants their wildest dreams to come true. And also inside of that, it's like there's this depth, there's this potential deeper location of disappointment or despair that is in relationship to that high. And I think that creates a lot of confusion and distortion for Pisces in of itself, because there's going to be a part of this rainbow or a part of this like deep inspiration or dream that's very true and very real for us. And there's other places that there's a confusion or we get twisted up emotionally. So an example to make that more concrete is that let's take like the personality patterns related to narcissism, not the full-on like character disorder or whatever, personality disorder, but I just mean like narcissistic psychological patterns, which are related to a deep need to be special, to be validated, and this kind of attachment to one's, social standing and attention and validation and whatnot, attractiveness, talent, like whatever it is that gets the applaud and the attention, the applause, the attention, the validation. Often what's happening inside of that is that the idea of talent or being extra special is like this 10 of cups like vision. And there's a lot of deeper pain or shame that when people are running this kind of attachment to their surface talents as a vehicle of gaining love, it's like going down and descending into some deeper pain and internal material is like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'd rather just have that nice extra, like big rainbow side of things. And you get basically like something that we're not wanting to feel projected onto a big drama or kind of big attachment out there. I'm trying to think of another example I should share along those lines. Another example is like having a spiritual ego structure where you think that the pathway to being happy and to having all your dreams and for things being good for you, 10 of Cups, involves you being a high vibe person who doesn't do like shadow work really. I don't even know if anyone listening to this is does that, but basically like that avoidance of inner, deeper material And this can actually be a little bit more subtle in terms of, say, like repressing your rage, like um, not being willing to go into that. And the idea being like, yeah, you don't have to unleash your rage in like inappropriate or damaging ways, but it's your life force, it's your energy. And if you're cutting yourself off from that huge part of you in order to kind of be in this fantasy of who you think you should be, it's hard for the deeper thing that you're really wishing for to actually materialize, because you're cut off from a big part of your power and internal energy. So it's interesting to me that these cards kind of talk to each other in that way, or that the Pisces disappointment or this non-idyllic internal spaces actually have a lot of connection to either the projected fantasy escape that we think will redeem that inner content, or if you've had a big experience in ceremony or something like that, where you really let yourself be washed out all the way and like felt your grief or felt some emotion all the way through, you probably touched a place after that was kind of ecstatic or something redemptive happened, because just contacting, just loving, just being in connection with your actual internal essence, the parts of you that you didn't think were worthy of love, the parts of you you didn't want to feel, that is Pisces power, right? It's like Pisces isn't just about living in the sparkle up there. It's like when it integrates with the deeper material that we have within us, it really grounds the magic. Um, so those are just a few thoughts along the lines of how those cards are connected. But this was my question sitting with these, and also sitting with these patterns in myself, um, because I have such intense Pisces signatures, I do have really big, at times unconscious ideas of where things are going to go. And then when they don't pan out that way, sometimes it's like the disappointment is that much deeper because it's attached to this ideal, right? And so how is it that a pattern that ends so idyllically in the tarot relates to so much emotional, psychological, and existential struggle? Um, I found some good mirroring for Pisces in this text by Bepin Bahari about Vedic astrology. Um, but it's speaking about Pisces and the way that this consciousness is learning to align with not my will, but thy will be done. And that it gradually realigns a person so that their old material tendencies are dissolved and washed away, either due to their satiety, right? Like receiving the dream, or due to understanding their insignificance in life, retreating, letting go. After a tropical storm, there comes a calm which gives rise to peace and tranquility. Right? So Pisces is really processing uh, a lot of material, right? Inside of this, like releasing and letting go of this kind of individual um, bias. And at the same time, we are here to be these humans. So we don't let go of who we are entirely. Again, a struggle for integration with Pisces. But I appreciate that he wrote here that when you go deeper into the symbology of these signs and symbols, one perceives that Pisces is full of storm and stress, inwardly as well as outwardly. To expect that nature will be quiet when all forms of manifestation ceases is unrealistic. Mother Nature, or the feminine aspect of creative energy, is a situation of intense subjective activity, sustaining an equilibrium. It cannot be taken simply as inert. Pisces represents the influences that confront the manifesting soul with the enormity of cosmic existence. So, something about this quote that touched me was, thinking about some of the different dramas that I've experienced in my life that have connected me with, say, like almost touching, or having the dream that I thought I wanted, and then feeling it dissolve before my eyes. And like, but why? Like, what was that storm even about? And the kind of spiritualization or the maturation process that's had to go along with, where do these dreams of mine come from? Like, how am I meant to have them? What am I meant to let go of? What parts of them are still real? Um, and so there's something about the Piscean connection to the dream, I think, that makes the waking life, or just what is reality, a little bit stormy because of its apparent connection and apparent disconnection in cycles to what Pisces really wants. I also thought about this phenomenon in fairy tales. Um, this was an example that came to mind of Cinderella. Um, but the basic construct in fairy tales, let me check the chat. The basic concept in fairy tales that there's a moment of despair, right? All seems lost, and then there's some kind of magical intervention. I thought about like Annie, the orphan, right? Like the It's a Hard Enough Life song, but then shortly after she's like whisked away and like adopted and goes to a mansion. Just kind of like these dramatic increases in fortune that happen in this magical arc after there was a moment of, all seems lost or things are so desolate. The moment of despair and then the fairy godmother appearing. Or if we make it even more dramatic, going from despair, Eight of Cups, wish fulfillment, here's your dress for the ball, Nine of Cups, and then happily ever after, the rainbow at the end of the story, 10 of Cups. And how often this is actually like a structure in fairy tales, and why, right? And like how it kind of matches that 8, 9, and 10 of Cups. And we might imitate fairy tales in terms of our psychology or what we come to expect from life. But fairy tales are also expressions of patterns innate in the human psyche. So, what did Saturn and Pisces reveal about fairy tale logic was something that I was asking myself and sitting with. I thought about the concept of I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the deus ex machina. And this is a Latin term that's a translation of a Greek phrase and means literally a god from a machine. Machine in this case refers to the crane that held a god over the stage in ancient Greek and Roman drama. The practice of introducing a god at the end of the play to unravel and resolve the plot dates from at least the 5th century BC. So this is like the OG fairy tale, right? One of the playwrights who made Euripides is one of the playwrights who made frequent use of the device. Since the late 1600s, deus ex machina has been applied in English to unlikely saviors and improbable events that bring order out of chaos in sudden and surprising ways. So something that I really sat with this is that this is another thing that Pisces is contending with, because on the one hand, the basic trust that we're going to be saved, or that something is going to come in and sweep over our lives and make our problems go away or fix something for us, is one of the issues with Pisces, because it doesn't always happen that way. We have to do our side of it. We have to make the preparations. We have to do our work, our process, and whatnot. And I think there's also something that Pisces understands about, like, we're not completely in control. We can appeal to God or to the gods. And that's why we have prayer and faith. And so I thought about it also from a developmental perspective, not exactly, Cinderella's age here, but being a baby and that moment of crying, and then the caretaker seeming to magically appear and comfort us in our moment of need. There's kind of this intrinsic wiring of like, we're out here, it's vulnerable to exist. We're on this kind of journey and things get hard at certain moments, and then we're hoping for something to come in and help us. Um, I meant to mention earlier with the wish fulfillment card that sometimes this is a form of love also that we give to others. It's kind of like with Pisces, that this kind of transcendent form of love where you anticipate how to answer another person's prayers, right? Like you think of something really thoughtful for them, or you give them an experience they've always wanted. This is something, it's a type of love language or a type of love nature that's very Piscean, and it could also be that your service or your work in the world has that quality to it of like you're offering something that answers other people's wishes or prayers. So it's not just about being the receiver. Sometimes we also are the ones who are playing the giver, the fairy godmother, what have you. Um, but I'm being a little bit repetitive because this is a process I've been circling around and also want to just explain in different ways so it clicks, is like, why is this moment of disappointment and sadness and despair connected to this big thread of magic? Like, and this is very Piscean. So another image that I thought about and kind of reflecting and working through all these things myself for this was like the the thing that really shifted for me in understanding Pisces when Saturn was moving through this sign and still um, is that there were certain places emotionally within myself that I learned that I was avoiding feeling, and that I was using fantasy as a way to kind of go up, to like get high, essentially. And that when I was younger, like in my early 20s, I was doing, becoming a professional astrologer, and there were plenty of people that thought that that wasn't a realistic career path and that it can't be done. I was like, I don't care about your realism. I have a vision and I'm going to make it happen. I'm plugging into my inspiration, and then I'm plugging that inspiration back into how I act and behave on the planet. So I'm like going up, getting the inspiration and weaving it back down. And I think that that was appropriate for me at that time. Like it worked, if you will. Um, but there's something about the underworld, right? So Pisces has this long split, this history of this religious dualism where we're going to be saved if we behave, if we're good, we'll go to heaven, which is up and out there. It's above, it's heavenly. And otherwise, if you're bad, you're going to go to hell, which is below and subterranean. Like that kind of concept was a original way that the split got created of like, weave the magic, but go up. Don't go down into what is considered wrong or bad or subterranean. So in another way, like of looking at what's down and in, it's like our chaotic inner emotional life, the emotions that we personally judge as bad or wrong, or that we don't want to feel. Um, it could also be like one of the big journeys for me with Saturn and Pisces was just learning how to land into what the moment was, to stop milking the moment for more and trying to imagine something or using the moment as a launch pad for fantasy, and just being like, this moment is all there is. Like letting myself feel the dullness or feel the boredom and just get lower and lower to the ground. Or when I was having, a difficult, or a numb spot or an emotional spot, instead of finding some way to escape it or go do something to go, feel up and feel happy and be above it, descending and being with that material. Um, that was all very powerful during this transit. I found it didn't do anything to disconnect me from the dream. It actually just made the dream have more space to incarnate. Because if Pisces is here to weave the realms, how is it supposed to weave into the material that we disavow ourselves from or won't let ourselves even connect with? So originally, when I was putting together this talk, I thought I was going to be really promoting like Saturn and Pisces. Like it's all about sobriety and like just being with what is. The more I sat in that, the more I actually experienced a wave of depression and realized that the psyche, um, it's not great for the human spirit at times, right? Or for too long to not have a dream or something that we see as the bigger picture. Or that in some sense, cyclically, at different points in our lives, we might be here, right? Other points in our lives, we're here, this moment of wish fulfillment or this kind of happy peak experience. And it's often when we're here that we kind of send out this prayer, this signal for help, right? Or for support from the beyond. Maybe it's when we're here, or anywhere along this story that we pray for, and express our gratitude. But I found when I was reflecting on like my daily life at the moment, I felt completely bogged down by uh, my cooking and cleaning. Suddenly just like, wow, is this all I'm doing all the time? Like I want to be doing something else, but I am committed to this like health thing and this meal plan, and now it's taking up all my time and energy. And I started to fantasize about like being able to have help or outsource, but I can't find that here because I'm in Greece and I don't know how to find it and blah, blah, blah. And so I was becoming very alienated from my actual experience and started to become depressed. Inside of that depression, I started to talk to spirit and ask for support and guidance. And inside of that deeper location of sadness or grief, or like, wait, I don't know what my next steps are in life. What am I doing here in this foreign country? Why did I move here? All that kind of stuff. That it started to open up this channel of divine connection. So it's just part of that Pisces story, no? Um, but I also had a dream that I feel was instructive in some sense, where I was shown something that happened in the past that uh, I've processed it, but it's still sad if I let myself go into it. And I was telling a dream character who was maybe more of like a fairy godmother type, oh, like when this comes up, I should just pray. Like when this particular pain point comes in, I'll just pray and make it all better. Um, she had a lamp near her and it wasn't lit. And when I woke up, I thought maybe the idea isn't actually fully accurate. That maybe the times in my life that I've made huge wishes from this location, I've manifested things that still connected back to that location. If that makes sense, I'm wondering if I should phrase it in another way. That when we dream from our wounding, we can sometimes call in something really compensatory, right? Like if you didn't feel cool in high school or something, and then you're trying to get really like all this status in the world or in your career, and it's not coming from a true place, it's coming from this location of like, people didn't think I was cool in high school. Or if your ambition is coming from trying to prove something to your dad, whatever it is, that when we dream from a wound, we have wounding experiences, we manifest, wounding experiences. And I'm not saying this out of judgment in some sense, because it's hard not to do. It's such a temptation to dream from our wounding, and to try to manifest a heroic answer to our problems. that we imagine from our own ego consciousness of like, I'm sad in this way, and here's this solution that I imagine myself, and please let me have it, universe. And I think that what came through when I was reflecting on that is that perhaps there's something about the deeper dream that we're really seeking here that isn't coming from our own imagination, right? Like maybe it's beyond it. Maybe it's beyond the wounding. And so Pisces is also doing this kind of dualistic thing of either addressing and healing what we know how to heal, and then also putting, like, taking our hands off the wheel, so to say, and letting something of the universe come through our lives. And let me check the chat and see what's happening here, because things started to really pop off here. Well, it appears from the chat that you guys get what I'm saying. And somehow I just started drawing. I don't know how to fix that. Anyway, I'm going to check in with you all and just have a discussion about this in a moment here. But to come back to this image of the tree and like the stars and the root system, Saturn in Pisces has taught me that there is a deeper rooting, deeper levels of integration that are possible in terms of what we think of as reality, and then what we are, where we're dreaming, right? And that it's not, reality isn't just how things are in our material circumstances. It's also those sensations we have in our body. Like it's also some deeper unconscious, subterranean internal things. And that Saturn and Pisces really taught me to be more cautious about compensating, as in, if there's internal pain within and you use fantasy or escapism to avoid it, you're not necessarily going to find the thing that you're seeking. And so it may be that the dream also exists down in that kind of Eight of Cups, Cinderella crying on the bench kind of moment, as in the internal unprocessed pain that we have is not so bad and wrong that it needs to be something that we never go in and touch. That actually, when we let ourselves feel and process something internally like that, we kind of constellate internally that fairy godmother character, if you will, by simply attending to ourselves in a place that has been left neglected. And that doesn't necessarily seem like the path to manifesting our deepest dreams, most logically. But there is something about, I think, recognizing through Saturn and Pisces that if you want your dreams to have a foundation, why not be present? Like, why not be actually here? Why not invest in roots that go down, as well as that part of us that can really dream out far? Last things I want to say is that I am running a advanced astrological salon for alumni of the Evolutionary Astrology Intensive that is beginning in January. I'm gonna, the links are in the notes if you're watching this recording, I guess on YouTube. And I also will make sure that you have it here. But Diviner, this is the third time I've run one of these year-long advanced salons. They're amazing. And some of the material for Diviner has been inspired by Saturn and Pisces, and that alongside learning how to work with transits in real time, how to, live alongside them and see the initiations and the experiences that they're actually showing up in your direct life experience, and how to read that and how to deepen your oracle as a diviner. Psychological and spiritual maturity is a theme that I'm bringing into Diviner. as in, we're in this waking dream. The planets, the transits are some of the most psychedelic influences that are happening, right? Like we're under the influence of these transits. And the way that they filter through our lives has a lot to do with how we're participating with them. And our ability to participate has to do with the levels of responsibility and maturity that we have to work with these energies. So in service of cultivating our oracle, creating this journey around deepening our astrological skill set, but also going deeper into that kind of subterranean personal realm also in relationship to this very enchanted craft. Applications are open now if you have been a student of mine before. And if you haven't studied with me before, the Evolutionary Astrology Intensive is the place to start. And this will be beginning again around March or the springtime. So if you're on my mailing list, that's the best way to find out. And this is where I give you the tools to speak the language of evolutionary astrology, to understand all the archetypes and how to put them together in a complex chart analysis, especially resourcing Pluto and the lunar nodes to gain a portrait of your soul's narrative through time and what it is that you're working on in this life. So I am going to stop the recording here, and I will stay here for the people who joined live to have a discussion. Thank you so much for watching this. If you're catching the recording, if you're on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment and let me know what resonated with you and how this landed for you. Thanks so much.